Hello and welcome to the Arkin Brothers Talk About Movies. I am Matthew Arkin and that is my brother Anthony Arkin, and today we are talking about 1932's Rain, starring Joan Crawford and Walter Huston. It is a fantastic tale of a prostitute and a minister. I think this is the movie that gave rise to the phrase "said the bishop to the chorus girl," and Anthony and I are going to dissect it. So please stick around and enjoy the convo. We also have a special guest, Peter Stray, to talk about his new podcast, Rise of Hans, and we're going to catch up just after this.
Talking about cocktails that are stylish, movies great or phony, and how Tony should win a Matthew, and Matthew should win a Tony. But in the meantime, talking about film in the meantime. The Arkin Brothers talk about movies.
I wonder why it must rain. Doesn't it ever stop?
Yes, ma'am.
Doesn't it ever stop?
Doesn't it ever stop? You know, I think there's got to be a whole bunch of people who just tune in for the cold open and the credits. To me, it's the best part of the show.
At least they're tuned in for something.
Yeah, that's right. How are you? It's good to see you.
I'm good. It's good to see you. I'm having some technical issues here at the home office. I apologize.
You seem much more cheerful right now than you did about 30 seconds ago.
Well, you know, when those
I'm
bright
a
lights,
happy-go-lucky sort of a fella.
when those bright lights hit me and the show starts, you know.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, I'm just glad this is working. I didn't even know if I'd be able to get on the show here. So
Yeah. Okay. But I just a few minutes ago learned something, and I'm sorry. Everything else is going to have to wait because there is something we have to talk about.
Oh, wait, this sounds like this is going to be at my expense somehow. You learned something about me?
No, not at your expense.
Okay.
I think it's going to lead you down a rabbit hole of glee and happiness.
Okay.
I'm sure you already know all about this. I didn't. Just came to my attention because I live in a cave
Right.
of booze. Not that I'm an alcoholic. A cave of working on booze. Anyway,
Right. Working alcoholic. Is that what you meant? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Have a drink.
Yeah, there we go. So I want you to cast your mind, if you will, back to the summer of 1981. Our parents were away and they had left poor young 13-year-old Anthony in the care of his older brother for the first time, just, all alone with me. And I had to take care of my little brother, and I wanted to go on a date. And I was like saying, how can I make both of those things happen? How can both of these things happen in an appropriate way?
Right.
And looking in the newspaper, I saw an ad for a special studio sneak preview of an unknown movie. I don't think it even had the name, but I think it may have said something about the director or whatever. And so I arranged to get us to this sneak preview in Bedford Hills. No, Bedford, in the town of Bedford, at the Bedford Playhouse.
Bedford Playhouse, right.
Bedford
Off
Playhouse.
Route 120, 122, or Route 22?
Route 22, I think Route 20. No, not 22, because 22 goes up to Katona. People don't need a geography lesson.
Well,
anyway.
I'd like to know.
Yeah. And we went there not knowing what to expect and sat. And when the movie was over, we sat there awestruck and knew that we had witnessed history, and it changed the course of my younger brother's life.
Yes.
And that movie was
Tootsie.
Wait,
no, I'm sorry. Tootsie's a fine film, but it was the wrong one. That movie was Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes. And about a half an hour ago, I saw the previews for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And have you seen the previews yet?
I saw them in the background on some kind of ad page that I was on, so I haven't actually seen it yet.
Well, they just released the previews, so you can go online after the show, and it looked like in the previews, it looks like they got it right.
Really?
Yeah. To me,
From the advanced word suggests no. I
oh,
mean,
really?
there was a lot of flack at the first like test screenings apparently, and
Really?
they were scared. Apparently, they
Ah,
were really nervous that it wasn't playing well. But maybe they fixed. They've been working on it and tinkering on it for a long time, so maybe they fixed the stuff that the audience didn't like.
or maybe like with so many previews, they put the 7
It's just
good
the good
moments
stuff.
in the movie.
It's just the good stuff.
Yeah,
But oh yeah, okay, fantastic. I mean, I wasn't the biggest fan of the Crystal Skull. I mean, I enjoyed it for what it was in the sense that I kind of got too old to have this big stake in how that franchise was being handled, but
right.
um I hope they'll reclaim some. I mean, he is getting up there to be playing an action hero. I know that everybody's a little concerned it won't go well, but they've de-aged him like a la the Irishman a lot in this thing, I think.
Well, they've actually worked that into the plot of the
The
movie.
de-aging,
Yeah, because it is the dial of destiny, and I think they go back in time,
they turn
or
back.
they turn back
Oh,
the clock so that it makes a certain amount of sense within the context of the movie, because in the previews, at least, he's old also. I mean, he's the age that he is now in the previews in moments of it as well.
interesting. Well, that
So,
is a smart way to handle that problem.
yeah,
I bet that our guest will know something about this too. My guess
right.
is he may have some input or info on it. But that's awesome. Yeah, well, you and I, that was a formative movie going experience for me. Obviously, I couldn't have been the writer age, the writer time, the writer person to see a sneak peek of Raiders of the Lost Ark before anybody knew what it was. I mean, I remember you took me to the theater and you said, I got something really exciting. And I was like, what? What could be? Star
Right,
Wars already came out. Like, how much more exciting is this going to be?
right.
And you were like, kind of almost as exciting, maybe, because you recognize that guy and you pointed to Harrison Ford in the poster. And I was like, oh my goodness, that looks like Han Solo. And you're like, that is Han
Yeah.
Solo.
Oh, wow, you remember it more than I do.
Oh yeah.
Of course, it was a date for me, so I had other things on my mind.
I
Um,
remember somebody remember you there with a date. I don't remember anything inappropriate. It's funny, I'm reading the new this new Tarantino book that
yeah.
he put out called Cinema Speculations, which if you haven't read it yet, I recommend. I'm halfway through and I'm enjoying it a lot. It's he's a good writer and he has great, I mean, he's just got really fascinating insights into movies. Surprise, surprise, but I didn't necessarily think he'd be able to, write like real film lit. This is film study stuff, and it's really good. And he talks about going to the movies with his mom, who was a divorcee at the time when he was 13, with her dates and them going on dates and taking him as a kid. So this mirrored very much, one of the experiences I was just reading about.
Oh, great. And also, one of the things that I've always been very happy about is that as an older brother, to be able to do something like that, it was such a win for me that I feel like I get a pass and can crap on you for the rest of my
Oh,
life.
I
And
mean, you introduced me to the good stuff. What can I say? Yeah, I mean, that's lodged in my
Wait
memory forever.
wait a second. I introduced you to the good stuff?
You
That
know,
doesn't sound
China
appropriate.
white
Yeah,
powder.
there we go. Well,
The
it is.
drugs and the madness of the 70s. That's what I'm
It was
talking
the
about.
China White of film at the time for a
It was
13-year-old.
a heavy dose of drugs for a 13-year-old.
What else going on in your life this past week? Watching anything, seeing anything, any momentous events?
Well, let's see. I went to a couple of movies at the theater this week. As you know, I love the Burn Center up in Pleasantville. It's one of the best art houses in the country. I just think it's fantastic. Not that I've been to every art house in the country, but I'm just saying I like it a lot.
I got you.
And we saw went to see the new Spielberg movie, The Fablemans.
The
And
Fablemans.
not Fablemans, although nothing wrong with Fablemans.
I said
That's just not the name
Fablemans.
of the movie.
I said Fablemans. It's
It's a
the
little hard to
Fablemans.
say with the accent.
Okay.
And then we saw an oldie. We saw an old Howard Hawks movie called Ball of Fire
Oh,
with Gary Cooper and Barbara Stanwyck. and that was fantastic. 35 millimeter print, like gorgeous, just fantastic.
Wow,
So I was in
films.
movie heaven. Yeah.
So it's film, something they used to make.
Something that they used to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't
Film.
really do much anymore. Yeah.
Well, I started watching, as I do, a British
Another British crime show.
crime, British crime series called Grace. That's really quite wonderful. And
What makes this one different than the other crime shows?
nothing. It's just
It's a different weave of sweater.
different sweater. It's just very, very. It's just incredibly wonderful actors. The character of Grace is played by a wonderful British actor named John Sim. There's a fellow Richie Campbell who I've seen on many other shows, who, if you don't know his work, is always spectacular. And he usually plays a bad guy, and he's playing a good guy in this one, but a kind of like unlikable good guy. So it's really wonderful and fun to watch. But then also, right before we started the show, I stumbled across, because I was killing some time on Facebook before the show started, and I stumbled across an ad for a show called Kunk on Earth, which again Peter Stray may well know about. It's a British show, a mockumentary with a reporter, Philomena Kunk, who is doing a sort of BBC Richard Attenborough This Is Earth series, interviews with people,
right,
the history of the planet and art and civilization, but in the vein of an idiot like Ali G.
Oh, that sounds good.
And in this, I watched about 15 minutes of it, and she's in this episode, goes into a cave and is looking at cave drawings, and she says she looks at what cave drawing of like the hunters and the cows, the cow images, and it's got dialogue like, we don't know why humankind was at war with the cows, and tragically we probably never will.
Well, that sounds like fun. I'd like to see that.
She's asking an anthropologist, if anybody has ever made movies out of these cave paintings, and why not,
right?
Because they're like, she compares them to the Fast and Furious 7 of civilization at the time,
right? Like Ali G asking the astronaut, why haven't we sent a man to the sun?
And the woman who plays Philomena Kunk is quite Diana Morgan, very, very funny, very talented.
Okay. Wow. Well, it's interesting that got more time than this new Spielberg movie. I'm just saying.
No, we talked about the Spielberg movie a lot.
No, I wouldn't if I was you.
I wouldn't.
Okay. I wouldn't if I was you.
Okay, now my reception's bad again. This is going so badly technically. I'm very calm about it, but it is.
From my end, you look great, so you don't need to worry. You're not really stuttering.
I'm just paranoid.
So before we get into talking about today's movie, though,
we have
a special guest who's waiting patiently.
Yeah,
he is going to have to adjust his camera because he's not. He's doing that on purpose. So we have do you want to introduce our guest? I mean, he's your friend.
I just think we bring him on and we just hash it out.
See what happens.
All right. See what happens.
Ladies and gentlemen, Peter Stray.
Sadie, meet the boy.
Hello, Arkins.
Always with the merch. You always got to lead with the merch. I understand.
There he is.
This isn't merch. I just made this for myself.
Oh, it's not merch. It's not like in the works to sell to
Holy
people.
Willy, look at this.
Yes.
No, it's just this is shirt.
Yeah.
This is limited edition of one.
Of course. No, we know we're no.
I forgot you've hijacked our show before. You've been here.
This is true. I mean, I always try. I try and like throw the grappling hook onto the good ship Arkin. Just when you're live, often in the comments.
I knew I felt something this morning.
Fun fact for you, and you go, "Oh God, it's the Welshman again." Trying to. But here I am in Connecticut with that's the Welsh dragon behind me, And here is my signed photo from Alan Rickman from when I was 11.
Wow.
There you go. So that's framed.
Are you sure it was Alan Rickman and you hadn't just bumped into Fiona Hill somewhere?
Fiona Hill?
Yeah. Have you ever noticed? Do you remember Fiona Hill, the CIA Russia advisor who gave testimony during the Trump hearings?
Now, nothing too fancy now.
Maybe our producers.
There's some people that were likening her to Snape or something.
Yeah,
okay.
Maybe our producers can pull up one of the
No,
meme
well, first off, this was postal. This is the only fan letter I ever wrote, and I got a response. So I think if Fiona Hill was sort of jumping on that, I wonder why that was a good use of her time.
Well, she could have jumped on it because she was,
hey, if it was the CIA, I wouldn't know.
CIA Black Ops, she could have hacked into his email or mail, whatever.
Just trying to deal with MI6. Yeah. But thanks for having me on. I know you've got some rain forecast to talk about.
We do. We have rain forecast to talk about, but we have
I wonder why it must rain.
a more pressing thing to discuss vis-a-vis a show that it happens that all three of us are connected to.
This is true. So I made I wrote and directed and produced a sort of a mini audio dramedy series, which I'm putting out in podcast form, called Old Habits: The Rise of Hans.
Did you say old? Were you going to say Old Rabbits?
I was going to say Old Rabbits. Yeah,
I just wanted to make sure
that's a podcast I would tune in for.
No, there are several old rabbits I know and love, but yes, it's Old Habits: The Rise of Hans, and obviously called Old Habits because Old Habits is before Die Hard.
Now I get it.
This is a comic prequel to Die Hard, but from the Hans Gruber's character's point of view, because he's a much loved villain, and really from his point of view, the whole movie is Ocean's 11. So it's really a question of sort of how he got the team together. And things like that, and there's so many wonderful allusions to his past in the script of the film. The newscast talks about him being a member of the radical Volksfrei group in Berlin, and then he says, I always enjoyed making models when I was a child, and then he in Die Hard 3, then Jeremy Irons shows up as his brother, and I thought, all right, that's an awkward family dinner that I'd like to be a fly on the wall for. And there's actually I've sent in a couple of clips. I don't know if a family dinner clip is possibly ready. This is when the Jeremy Irons the character Simon shows up late.
How long is the clip? Is it like an hour long?
Brother. He's not even here.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Hello, Mother.
Hello, darling.
Simon. Anya.
Brother.
My motorcycle was pulled over, but the policeman and I came to an understanding.
Which hospital should we send the lawyer to?
No violence occurred.
That's my boy.
Merely threats.
Regular as clockwork.
What's that?
Late entrance, the display of dominance. It's as if father never left.
Well, someone has to fill those shoes. I'd also be very happy to put you over my knee.
Dinner is currently achieving Arctic status. Perhaps Frau Goldman could heat this up.
Nonsense. It will be fine.
It's cold, Mother. We've been sitting here for 30 minutes.
Why are you so hostile?
It's about the will, Mother. The food is cold and the grapes are sour.
The reading of the will went precisely as expected. My grapes have never been sour. They're merely fermenting.
Wow.
So there you go. So that's an awkward family dinner with the very talented Amelia Campbell as Frau.
You sound. Just say that. Can you take another take on that? Where you sound less surprised, like you sound like very, very talented.
Well, I'm sort of feigning as if like, oh, look who we happen to have.
Oh, look who we have here. Yeah, I guess I feel a little hurt that you chose a clip that neither I or Matthew were in to play, but.
Oh, well, I mean, there's a trailer. I've got other clips, but I don't want to.
I bet when you were a kid, you caught flies and tore their wings off. I bet you stuck pins in frogs just to see them wiggle and flap while you read them a lecture. I know you. Why, you'd tear the heart out of your grandmother if she didn't think your way and tell her you were saving her soul, you something in front of her.
That's not one of my clips, but what she said, basically, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's obviously there's a lot of action scenes in it as well, but I figured out of context, lots of sort of gunfire and explosions. Wouldn't
A lot of clumping feet and people going "Ugh!" and getting shoved around. Yeah.
Well, and not to mention Schnell. There's a bit of that.
Yeah.
You've got to have some
Well,
Schnell.
then that could have been very exciting to hear, though. But not as exciting as a scene that Matthew or I were in, that we could dissect and talk about our work and our approach. But I guess
I'm not.
Well, there is one where Tony Tony. Well, you guys have multiple roles. This is kind of a wonderful ensemble international cast where people play more than one role. And one of Tony's roles is inspired by the William Atherton character in Die Hard. So it's a fictional podcast, but like Clunk on Earth, it's sort of told as if it's a true crime podcast created by the William Atherton journalist character from the original Die Hard and the second Die Hard, Richard Thornburg. So there's a clip of that with a bank job where he talks about tracing Hans, Tony, and Carl's first attempt at capitalist robbery.
Security camera footage from the Wilcoma Bank shows 3 gunmen dressed as security personnel enter the premises and swiftly disarm the real guards. We can see a man who could well be Hans making a speech to the cowering customers, though sadly it is inaudible. We can also see one guard hide and a man we assume to either be Carl or his brother Tony talk to them and gesture as if coaxing them out of hiding. We then see the guard being tragically shot. 2 men walk into the vault and one watches the staff and customers before all 3 men exit like specters in the Berlin night, carrying 3 large duffel bags.
Wow, you should think about doing that for a living, Tony. That was really good.
Don't be crazy. No, don't be crazy.
That was really
you're
good.
Awful good.
Writing the stuff for the journalist character played so well by Tony was some of my favorite stuff to do, because if you remember from the actual Die Hard movie, Richard Thornburg has some of the most terrible purple prose as a journalist.
Oh, he was rough on the ears.
So specters in the Berlin night carrying 3 large duffel bags, and things like that. There's more of that. If you follow and download, there's a huge amount of
in fact there are hours of those things, because it's the show is many episodes long.
It's not if you download it, when you download it. Exactly.
When. Okay.
It's a mini series, so there are 5 episodes. It's just 5 episodes, and then there are also 5 companion, like inside the episodes, like you see on HBO, where me and some guests like you guys talk about it. But one thing I was hoping is if I can sort of sneak in here and get a clip for that with the companion podcast, which is called Hands On.
You had a couple of questions for us apparently about the 80s.
Well, I mean, what's great is you were kind of already doing it before I started, where you were talking about memories from the 80s. So what? And this is stuff that you've talked about on your show before. So but you have talked about, obviously, you grew up on movie sets. You would often be on location with your dad. So I'm just wondering if, from the insider's point of view of being on an 80s movie set, if there are any particular memories that stuck out to either of you, of being on a set in the 80s, for something that really sort of sticks in the memory. I know you guys talked about previously, being on set with Rutger Hauer.
Well, yeah, I mean, sure. There's too many I was on a lot of sets in the 80s. I was working I was already working, and I was also visiting a lot of people on sets. So I don't know, most impressive 80s scenario. That'll take me 1 second. 80s. When you mentioned Rutger Hauer, Escape from Sobibor, we visited, Matthew and I were both on that set, which was a TV film my dad did, our dad did. And I think that was late 80s. That was like 88 or 9, I think.
Yeah, thereabouts. 87, I think. And
that was an amazing experience. That was an epic TV film with an international cast. Rutger Hauer was in that. Joanna Pakula, an incredible group of English actors. Kurt Raab from Germany. And it was a World War II. It was a World War II era kind of like escape from a prison camp movie, and it was an incredible production and experience to be around. That was amazing.
Yeah.
But if I remember correctly, I think you just sort of mentioned this off the cuff in a cafe in Brooklyn at some point. One of the most interesting people you met during that stay wasn't actually in the film, but was having breakfast in the hotel. Is that right?
Yeah.
That was Mr. Oliver Reed. That was a pretty amazing encounter.
It was extraordinary. Yeah, that was one of the weirder breakfasts I've ever had. And it was just Matthew. It was just the two of us. We're having breakfast. Weren't we going to go to the set, right, and see them shoot something? And we were at the hotel at the Intercontinental in what was formerly Belgrade, and a lot of actors were coming through then because they were shooting films there all the time. And we were just happened to be sitting at a little banquette, only people in the restaurant, when they ushered in this very well-dressed giant drunk man and sat him next to us.
Extraordinary. Did you get a sense? I don't know how old you were, but did you get a sense of, I think this man is 3 sheets, 4 sheets, 5 sheets?
Oh, we were plenty old enough to know. We were both, graduates of schools and adult figures in society by the time we met Oliver Reed.
And drinkers ourselves.
Yeah, we had already started drinking. We knew what was up with him, but we also were palpably afraid. I think that was, more than noticing he was drunk or being awestruck. There was a real sense of danger in the air, for real. Like, you didn't really know how it was going to go, and the fact that it potentially could go towards physical violence was just obvious, completely obvious.
So did he impart any drunken wisdom to you, or talk to you about the industry?
He did impart one bit of my memory. I don't remember the breakfast so much as I remember the night before in the bar, with the announcement to the bar before he left. It was where he got everybody's. You remember the quote? He got everybody's attention in the bar before he left. There were sort of 2 groups of people drinking in the bar. There was the Escape from Sobibor cast and crew, and there was the cast and crew of whatever movie he was working on in sort of separate areas of the bar restaurant. And all of a sudden we hear this man shouting to get everybody's... He shouts, gets everybody's attention. The entire place quiets down. He's like, everybody! We settle down, look over at Oliver, and he says, the hand, the heart, bananas, and walked out of the bar. And it's become a catchphrase for our family. The hand, the heart, bananas.
It explains a lot.
Yeah,
it really does.
And you don't know what else to say, but you're moved.
Yeah. I remember he told us about, at breakfast, he told us about his pet rhinoceros. He got vaguely hostile, but in a way that was hard to decipher, like to determine whether he was kidding or not. I remember he got slightly anti-Semitic, possibly, but we couldn't quite tell because what was happening was just so strange.
Here in the frozen north, in the land of the Eskimo. Goodbye, Mr. Davidson.
Watching somebody polish off 2 bottles of champagne at breakfast just by themselves was something I hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he didn't disappoint in any way. Like, it was exactly the kind of interaction you'd kind of expect.
That's extraordinary. And I mean, what's amazing is that I think in between shoots of Gladiator, obviously he famously died halfway through shooting that, and he actually collapsed in a Spanish bar called The Pub. And, I just sort of think prophetically, surely he must have said, "Oh, I'm going to die in the pub one day."
John Bonham amounts of vodka or whatever they were serving him. And he died, right? That's how, didn't he die down there?
Yeah, he died during the filming of Gladiator, so they had to sort of rejig things in editing.
Well, before we met him, we had nothing to do with this.
Yes. No, but I suppose just one more question is given that was around about the time when you met him was around about the time when Die Hard came out. Do you have any memories of seeing Die Hard for the first time and what your thoughts were? Is it sort of stuck in your mind in a similar way to seeing Raiders for the first time?
For me, seeing Die Hard the first time was more the experience of, that guy who used to tend bar at the place I would drink has done pretty well for himself.
And that's Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
Okay. So he was a bartender at your local.
Yeah.
I was, I wasn't as impressionable when Die Hard came out. I mean, I was young, certainly a young man, and appreciate it. What was the year that it came out again?
88.
Yeah, 88. I mean, we were talking about Raiders. I was like 13 when that came out. So that was very, very good timing. I think had I been a little younger, Die Hard might have affected me that heavily. I was already Lethal Weapon was before Die Hard, yeah?
I think it was a year before, yeah.
So I was already a Lethal Weapon nut. I loved that. And Die Hard was to me just yet like another great sorry, I have a cat that's trying to get my attention. They're fine. They're not hurt. They're just trying to get my attention.
And if he's looking for trouble, I'll see that he gets it, that's all.
Hey. Hey. Why don't we cut that out?
Oh, this is not helping your case. Watch what you say.
And what was did you have any impressions of Rickman as a because that was his first movie. Like Rickman had done some BBC TV series and some obviously a lot for the Royal Shakespeare Company, but that was his first movie.
Yeah. I liked him. I thought he was great. I didn't, the movie didn't change my life the way it changed your life. I know it altered the course of your life. And for me, I thought it was another really great reason to be alive that time of movies, but it wasn't a movie that that changed my life. It didn't excite me more than Lethal Weapon. I was already still kind of a Lethal Weapon devotee, and not that there's only one, but I think I kind of leaned into the team building aspect, the Howard Hawks kind of quality, which we talk a lot about the show of Lethal Weapon, as opposed to the lone guy. I liked the team, the partner thing a lot. So
both Joel Silver films and both great scores by Michael Kamen, where he used
both fantastic Christmas movies that don't actually relate to Christmas in any real normal way.
Well, now this is the big debate: is do you would you call Die Hard a Christmas movie?
Oh, I'm totally To me, Die Hard is a Christmas.
I think Lethal Weapon is a movie that happens to be at Christmas, whereas Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
Wait just a minute.
I think you're sitting here, but yeah.
By you, Peter, because I read something on Facebook the other day about why it is a Christmas movie.
Well, I mean, Lethal Weapon happens to be at Christmas. There's not a lot of themes in there with Christmas, whereas Die Hard has this sort of a man who has done wrong and is then he's been a dick to his wife, and it's sort of a journey where he's reconciled, and it's got a sort of an almost a Scrooge-like element to it. His wife is called Holly for a start,
right?
The limo driver's called Argyle, and at the end there are papers sort of fluttering down, kind of like snow out of the building,
And this went into a whole thing of comparing it to all of the tropes that are in all of the Hallmark movies too, and talking about how you can find every single one of those in Die Hard.
I would like to see a Hallmark movie featuring Hans Gruber, or just international terrorism in general. I think it should happen. Why not? Why not have a woman who breaks down in a small town, with a hunky mechanic guy, and she has a life in the big city, and then but then a bunch of international terrorists swoop in.
I think you could make a case for Lethal Weapon having similarly. I mean, Holly's a good one. I'll give you that. That's good. But I think that that it doesn't corner the market on redemption. I mean, the Lethal Weapon is about redemption much more than Die Hard is.
Well, that's because it's a Mel Gibson movie, and Mel Gibson is Jesus Christ in every single movie that he makes.
That was my second point. So it has a lot of Christmas vibes.
Yeah. No.
And it starts with a Christmas song. Does Die Hard?
Almost.
Well, that's different than yes.
That's true. Almost as different than yes. No, it's straight off. Jingle Bell Rock straight off the bat as the credits roll in Lethal Weapon. Christmas in Hollis, Run DMC, about 10 minutes into it, 5 minutes into it. So
I think they're neck and neck. I think it's fascinating that they're both, to me, they're both Christmas movies.
Interesting.
They both are.
All right.
In an oblique way.
Yeah. Well, you guys are both awesome in the podcast. We featured Tony. We haven't mentioned Matthew, but Matthew plays 3 different roles. One of the reasons I don't have, Matthew features briefly in the trailer, but one of the reasons I haven't pulled up other.
My voice ain't so bad if you don't listen too hard.
There's some meow moments here. Is Matthew is in episodes which haven't been released yet. So there's 2 other parts he plays, which would be perhaps too big a spoiler.
All right. Well, that makes sense. The show is terrific. I'm proud to be on it. I can't speak for Matthew, but I'm very happy to be involved. And
I'm very proud, but I don't remember anything about it. It was it's all a blur to me. So when I get to hear what I do, I'll be surprised.
Well, it's one of the things with the isolation of Zoom and which is both perhaps a bit odd artistically as actors where we're working in these bubbles, but it also means that I can pull from this wonderful international array of talent. I've got you guys, I've got friends in the UK, I've got, an actor from the Royal Shakespeare Company, who I grew up with playing Tony. And then I've got another actor who, did Shakespeare at the Old Globe in San Diego and then was on Broadway playing his brother Carl. Those 2 guys have never met, and I taped the latter actor in New Zealand, so it's, and then they all send me these audio files and I put them all together and everybody seems to be organically interacting, but it's all the sort of magic of audio drama editing. And then it's been super fun, doing the sound design and putting in the explosions and playing with the stereo thing. So it really is, it's a sort of basically an audio movie that I'm trying to create.
So much like the silent films that are, talk about a segue, much like the silent films that are the film that we're discussing today almost could have been because it was so old.
Do you mean it's like the opposite of that because this is all audio and that's all silent?
No, it was a stupid way to try to make a segment into discussing.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Our movie.
Unless this episode's already almost a full length long, maybe we should discuss our. Maybe we should discuss the movie next week.
Well,
let's get to Rain.
I'm always looking for an excuse to just sort of crowbar my way into Arkinian life.
It's always a pleasure. It's always
we have to crowbar you out so that we can get to the movie.
It's totally entirely my fault. This is produced. I will take responsibility. This was not well handled. This was spur of the moment.
That was delightful.
And, this is what happens.
Before he leaves, though, I do want to show him the photograph of Fiona Hill and Snape.
Fair enough. Equally, though, it could be argued there was a photo that someone had of Adam Driver, I think, as Kylo Ren, and someone had written this is a young Snape movie that I want to see.
Yeah, definitely.
And I actually think if my audio drama, someone in Hollywood 20th Century Fox is like, we won't sue you if we can use the basis of your script, pay you $5 and make a.
That's not how it works. They will sue you and then take it and
take the idea,
and listen to the lamentations of your women, as they said in Conan.
Well, if anyone from is out there,
no, we don't. We can't do that.
No, I believe it's
looking for money on shows like this.
No. I believe it's called fair use. It's a satire, which is called a transformative work. So I'm
surprised you didn't do this homework before you do.
You're wrong.
It might have been a better way to do it, but
I think Adam Driver would actually make a terrific young Hans if he can get the.
I don't know what the kids want to see today. You talk to the
Yeah, I
producers
know.
about that.
No, I'm becoming an old fart myself, so I don't know. But thank you so much for having me on, guys. You guys are both brilliant in the show, and for anyone, it's called Old Habits: The Rise of Hans. It's where you find podcasts, and and I hope you follow and download it like you guys have been enjoying the Arkin Brothers.
Great, so good to see you, Peter, as always.
Thanks for stopping.
Bye-bye.
Hello.
Hello.
Sayonara.
I'm off.
So he's built an entire universe around
Yeah.
Die Hard. That's very cool. It's actually very. What's surprising about it is how in depth it is. So it's like literally, the show is like you think it's going to be kind of a sketch comedy because I think at first I thought because of the idea it was going to be a sketch, but it's not. It's an incredibly detailed, densely written epic about his former life, which is very cool.
I look forward to hearing it.
Did you watch did you watch the movie for this week?
Rain?
Yeah.
Yes, of course I did.
Where did you see it? How did you come across this old antiquated movie?
I believe I watched it on was it on Amazon Prime that I had it, or was it on one of my streaming services?
That's cool. I'm just curious, like, where people see these old time films.
Yeah, it was on Amazon Prime or Hulu, or maybe it was on Hulu. I got it. It was free because it's all public domain now, I think. I was able to watch it for free, or
You're wrong.
Maybe it was $1.99, but it was Amazon Prime or Hulu or Freevee or Tubi or
Foovie or something.
Fribbledy. Yeah.
Well, this is not helping your case. Watch.
Okay, that's great.
So, yeah. So I got to watch it.
Had you ever seen young Joan Crawford before?
I had never seen young Joan Crawford before, and I got to tell you, my whole life I'd only seen old Joan Crawford, and my whole life I was like, this woman's a star. This woman's a star. How did this happen? What is that about?
Now you know.
This makes no sense. And now it's like,
now you know.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That woman is a star.
Is a superstar. I know. Yeah. That's one of the
and
things.
Then the question arises, what happened? Because if that young woman, it's to me, it's like, oh, they did a body snatcher's body swap at some point. Because
Oh, handsome, why can't you let me alone?
I think that I understand what you mean, but it's kind of hard when you're dropping into like all old Crawford, which is kind of like a melodrama and very like arch and crazy, and then see only one of her early movies. She was a star for a long time, so like she made a lot of movies more like this and was in silent films and bridged the gap into talkies. Like, she'd been working for ages. I think she struggled with becoming with aging a little bit, with becoming a mature woman. I think her identity was so entrenched in that kind of flapper, this kind of what you see in this movie. I think it was probably kind of hard for her to age up, although she did amazing performances in films where she was, hitting her 30s and 40s too. I don't know really why she has the reputation based on the stuff I've seen from the old days, like Grand Hotel and stuff. She's incredible,
spectacular in this movie.
And her style too, right? Like her look, her it's not just the performance, but her iconic, the way that she used makeup and her costumes and everything, her physicality. She's amazing.
Yeah, breathtaking in this. Breathtaking.
It's a fun thing, isn't it? When you see an old movie after years of not understanding why somebody is talked about, and then you finally see something, you're like, oh, okay,
yeah.
I get it.
She completely.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Completely blew me away. And there's a lot of people in this movie though that need to be mentioned.
Oh, for sure. This is a pretty terrific movie for me. Like I had you seen it before?
I'd never seen it before, didn't know anything about it, and will be watching it again.
Yeah, I saw it, and then I immediately went out and got a copy of it to own, and
Oh, you're awful good. Oh.
been a fan of it for about 10 years, and it's it's worth like going into a little bit about what it is. So this is a story that was first a short story by Somerset Maugham, famous British writer, and then it was adapted into a play, and then it was made into 2 different films. This was either the second film. I think this was the second film version of it. So there was a long legacy, and there'd been famous people had played this character, Sadie Thompson, before. The part that Joan
Gloria
Crawford
Swanson.
played.
Gloria
Right.
Swanson played it, and then Rita Hayworth, I believe, then played it in 58.
Okay. And that I didn't remember it was Hayworth, but it'd been around. The story had been around, and the character Sadie Thompson, I think, kind of like a famous archetype almost of like a fallen woman, flapper girl, kind of tough guy, gun mall kind of type. And
my kind of gal, basically.
Who doesn't like that kind of gal? That's fantastic. Anyway, she gets on her way, kind of escaping from her past. She gets waylaid in the South Pacific, on a small island, on her way to Apia. And is that how you pronounce it? Apia,
I think they call it in the movie.
And
Tuna fish or bean?
Because of an outbreak of, I guess, cholera or something on the boat, they can't use the boat for 2 weeks, and it's out of commission, and it's during monsoon season, so they're just stuck on this island with a small group of people, almost like an Agatha Christie story in the beginning, and it's this character Sadie, and then this religious kind of political figure, this religious church guy, who and his wife, who are traveling the South Seas doing missionary work, and they all kind of clash with also a group of soldiers that are there. It's old-fashioned melodrama, but
Sadie Thompson, you are doomed.
Ah, you make me laugh.
Soldiers who are all too happy to have a woman of ill repute amongst them.
Right, they're delighted.
And the reformer and his wife, who is not happy to have.
Yeah. Our producers are typing in something that's a really interesting point. This movie was not a success. It was a box office flop. It did not get critically well received at the time. And it's also Crawford's least favorite film of hers, which is sad to me, because that indicates that she really was talking about her benchmark must have been box office, must have been money, because this is held up as a really great movie. I think this is a classic, and it's a shame that it didn't do more business then. I think it's great,
and there isn't a moment in the movie or a performance that doesn't hold up for me.
Okay. I'm there with you. I have a few things that I could quibble about, but to me, it's a complete classic, just a classic.
You have a much keener eye than I do.
Do I? No, I thought you were making a pun, which I didn't understand, because Catherine Keener's not in this.
No, but she's in my list of people who will be in the remake.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
she is interesting. Okay, we'll get to that. I'm excited about that. What do you think? There's an aspect of this movie that knocks me out, which I encounter every time I see a movie from this period. It's the right before the Code started. It's pre-Code movies, like late pre-Code movies.
Right.
And if you don't know what we're talking about, the Code was the censorship code.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Studios self-imposed censorship about things like, sex or drug use or anti-American sentiment. Or
was it Kefauver? Was it Estes Kefauver Commission that did the Code?
I don't know. The Kefauver Commission is not familiar to me.
I could be wrong.
Hays Code.
The Hays Code
is what I know it as.
Kefauver might have been the HUAC, the House Un-American.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Might have been.
No, this is the Hays Code, which is which, you know,
makes me want to knock my head against the wall.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, it really wrecked Hollywood in a lot of ways. And what's really interesting for young film goers who are trying to look at the history of Hollywood is to hit this point where before the code, but late in the game. So the Hollywood system was already up and running. You had stars like Joan Crawford who were recognizable then in talkies, making movies about things and showing you things that you probably thought weren't allowed in movies.
Right.
There's no nudity in this movie, although there was nudity in some pre-code movies even. So it was much more tasteful than, you know, kind of raw stuff that we see today. But it's really surprising how adult it is, right?
This movie? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very. It's also amazing how for this time, how negative the portrayal is of what was then a fairly common and held up religious sentiment comes off very badly in this movie.
Can you elaborate? What are you exactly?
Well, a reformer like that, that and is today a mainstream. There's a strong moral mainstream reformer thread that runs through the American psyche that is eviscerated in this movie.
Yeah, it's eviscerated.
Portrayed as the opposite of, you know, this takes somebody who is a woman of ill repute, probably a prostitute, definitely.
Well, she's pretty much named as I mean, she's pretty much called out as a prostitute.
Yeah. A prostitute, a woman of loose morals, who is
and an ex-con, as it turns out.
Yeah, and who is in the moral framework of this movie high above the person who is morally upright.
Right. And is saying all the thing that none of the dialogue he has goes against that philosophy. That's what's interesting too. He doesn't say anything that goes against the church. It's the actions he takes and the look in his eye while he says them.
No, my poor child, it is not your fault.
And you know, it was interesting watching this movie at the same time that this other movie, what's it called now? The movie that's out now about Jerry Falwell and his wife sleeping with the pool boy. God forbid is the movie, you know, and it's like, yeah, like we see this time and time again, that these people who have these mega churches and hold themselves up as paragons of virtue fall.
Yeah,
and are false, and
more than that they fall, they're false. Exactly, that they're full of shit. That it's not actually they're complete hypocrites. Yeah, and that's what's so surprising about this movie is that even like this is 1932. Yeah, 1932, made in 1931, probably. Going after the church and that established fundamentalist stuff, like harder than we will go after it today in movies. They paint it as evil in this film.
Yeah,
they literally paint it as like a demonic evil. The thing almost plays like a horror movie. You know, it could almost be a Val Lewton movie. Like it's almost like that kind of RKO horror movie. Psychological thriller almost, because you know you really don't know what's going to happen if you don't know the story. And I hadn't read the short story or seen the play. You know, you're really worried about Sadie. And what's freaky about the movie is that there's a point where you don't take this guy seriously at all, and then there's a moment where she gets afraid, and you realize, oh my God, she's in actual peril.
Right, and he does have a lot of power.
He has an enormous amount of power, not officially, but he just does.
Well,
And
he has the same power that somebody like Trump has now, that there are people who are too afraid.
of
I
his
mean,
wrath, yeah.
yeah, so that they will do what he says because they're afraid of
Right.
of the impression that they will make on his followers.
Right.
Even though the person who represents the middle of the road America in this movie, who I would say is Dr. McPhail, who's the middle of the road fella, is sort of his attitude through the whole thing is like, maybe, maybe you should leave her alone. And I don't really agree with what you're doing. And okay, I will go talk to the governor and try and get him to relent and let her stay on the island. But he doesn't stand up to him and say, like the rest of America then and now,
No.
doesn't say, hey, this is fucked and we're not going to stand for it.
Well, yeah, like Sadie does, and like her boyfriend does, the fantastic what's his name, William Gargan, who
Oh, it's
plays the
fantastic.
Sergeant O'Hara, the guy who falls in love with Sadie and wants to take her away from all this and kind of rescue her. And he really does. You see, they fall for each other legitimately and quickly. I could have used a little bit, maybe if I was to pick a couple of things to pick at. I could have used a little more of them getting to know each other. I could have learned a little bit more about him. Maybe a little bit. The movie is short and it goes by pretty quickly. So, or at least it feels like it does.
Remember I told you if you ever needed a friend, I'd be here? Well, you need a friend right now.
That shot.
Oh my God.
And there's photography in this movie too that just like you can't believe it.
Yeah. Spectacular.
The circular roundabouts that the movie takes.
In my notes.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Everything going around and around
all the time.
Around the table and then around the outside on the porch. Just incredible.
Yeah. And one of the best cinematic reinterpretations of a stage play that I've ever seen. In that, it reminded me of Key Largo in a lot of ways, but even better than that. And I think it is that circular, that motion that we feel trapped in this space and we're spinning in it.
Yeah, Louis Milestone, who directed this and was also known for very famous for the original All Quiet on the Western Front, which was another early sound film that was, that still holds up as one of the best war movies ever made, or certainly an anti-war movie. Interesting now because they just did a remake of it. Everybody's like, have you seen All Quiet on the Western Front? I'm like, have you seen the original one? Louis Milestone did a good one. See that one too.
Yeah.
Anyway, famous director. He had a long career. All Quiet on the Western Front, the front page. He went all the way to Ocean's 11 with Sinatra. Like that, he did a lot of films. This guy.
Wow.
Known for kind of inventing and creating the tracking shot as we know it today. Apparently, he invented the kind of track to use and used it a lot. You see it in All Quiet on the Western Front. His movies are fast edited. There's a quick pace to them in the editing, even with a psychological drama. There's really, it has a lot of speed to it and a lot of camera movement, which you see like, you see in Scorsese movies. You can see Scorsese like looking at this style of work back from the 30s and kind of adapting it and making it fresher. But I don't know how much fresher anybody made it. Like this movie looks fantastic.
Yeah. Our producers are pointing out that there are bars in almost every shot: beaded curtain, the pier, slats on the window, etc. This sense of them being trapped. And I also love the use of the drums, the drum motif, the primitive drums, particularly under the scene between Walter Huston and her, where he's really working on her, but we're hearing that primitive beat, which is clearly symbolizing what's going on inside for him while he's trying to pretend that it's not.
Yeah, and also kind of doing an interesting flip. It's like the life that we see that the locals live, that the people from the islands live, is actually one that it looks beautiful, harmonious, part of nature.
They're in the Garden of Eden.
Peaceful. It's described as such. And although it's a little patronizing because it's made by white dudes, I still think their heart was in a really good place in the sense that, unlike a lot of movies at that time where locals or indigenous people were really seen as backwards maybe by the movie, this really did a lot to try to say, no, we've strayed from the right way to live here. And
well, even with the symbolism, the one of the most memorable images of the islanders in the movie is a direct biblical reference of the fishers of men, that they're out there collecting and it's juxtaposed with this preacher who's buttoned up and pretending to be the voice of Jesus and righteousness, who is cruel and lecturing,
right?
And here are these people living what is a real Christian existence,
right? But even the drums that you mentioned, they are only heard underneath him, not that you don't see them with these drums.
No,
you see one performance that they give to him and his wife.
Yeah,
but outside of that, you see them working, playing, taking care of their children, living their life. The only time you hear that idea of like, oh, the menacing jungle drums that start are in his head. They're his. That's his savagery that they're trying to show us. And I thought that was just really subtle and interesting social politics going on in an early film. Cool to watch.
They didn't go too far with it, though, because for a while I was really afraid of what they were going to get to when the drums stopped, because sometimes when the drums stop, you get the worst thing of all, which is the bass solo.
The bass solo. Yeah, you don't want it. So please keep the drums going.
Yeah.
Please keep them going.
For those of you out there who know that joke, and if you don't, write to us and we'll tell it to you.
If you don't, you're not old and fun like us.
I'm sorry. For everybody in the world, I guess.
So the design of the movie is insanely beautiful. I mean, I was thinking about how hard it is to pull off what they did, which is to create a setting and a mood of a very, very lush, rainy, tropical island in the Pacific, that you're creating out of sets on a soundstage, rain machines, some rear screen projection of real things behind actors, and then actual shots of B-roll of the islands, and then also stuff that they're stealing on the back lot.
Right. Well, it was filmed on Catalina, actually.
There's a shot of them you can see it's the Santa Monica, it's like the Santa Monica Pier, the Catalina Pier that they're underneath at one point.
Right.
And to make all of those elements come together believably is something that everybody just kind of sleepwalks through now with computer generated backgrounds and imagery, but back then to sew all those things together,
as you can see from what I've been able to accomplish today,
it's incredible. I believe that you are into black and white illustration.
Yeah.
So the design's incredible. It's just really great, and how there are all these rain effects going on in the shots, and you can still hear the actors.
Holy Willy, look at this!
Like the recording of it is incredible. How is the rain not overtaking all those shots?
Strange how one's thoughts run to food when there's nothing else to think of.
So had you seen a lot of Walter Huston before this?
Full Skull.
Treasure Sierra Madre, of course. Yeah.
And Devil and Daniel Webster.
Right. You ever see Dodsworth?
No.
It's great. I love him. I feel like he leaned really hard into this monotone kind of performance, which was brave. I thought maybe it was maybe a tad much. And I love him. This is all out of absolute respect, but I feel like it got a little, it just got a tiny bit arch for me. It's at times.
I love arch.
I do too, but it pays off though in those close-ups at the end of him, man. When he loses it.
Yeah. Yeah. He
Stumar was a cinematographer of Rain. I have Oliver T. Marsh as the cinematographer of Rain, but I just get my info from IMDb there, so maybe I'm wrong.
Don't argue, people.
I'm not arguing. I'm just wondering why we're wrong. Why one of us is wrong about that.
We'll get it straightened out.
So you know, any nitpicky things that you could nitpick?
No, I loved it. I loved it.
You can love it and still have, you know. I mean,
I don't have any nitpicking. I loved every moment of it. I do have a question for you. Am I wrong to be picking up references to 1928?
You're wrong.
The 1928 French film, The Passion of Joan of Arc, in the shots of her when she's redeemed?
No, probably
when she is either redeemed or pretending to be redeemed.
Probably not.
You don't think I'm wrong about that?
I don't think you're wrong about that. No, I mean, I would bet that it would be hard. You'd be hard pressed to find another close up of a woman from a big movie that didn't somehow have to deal with Passion of Joan of Arc in a way, you know. But it seems like they're referencing that iconography for sure.
This is just a few years afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And the lighting and the look, the angle and the look and everything that she's doing just seems so much a reference to that. And then we find out it's false.
Yeah. Well, also as one of the big religious iconic, you know, religious movies of the time.
Yeah.
About a woman, they would probably have been conscious of it and referencing it. I certainly thought of it. I mean, and the way, just like the way that they're lighting her tears, even, it's similar. You've never seen eyes that were just more ready to like fill up with waterworks. Like it's incredible.
Yeah.
So, you know, look, I'm only going to bring up things that I can nitpick because it's fun. And I think every movie has a couple of things that, you know, this makes the movie no less dear to me. I don't love it any less. I'm just thinking of like, could there have been things that would make it even better? And this is on my third viewing now, or fourth viewing. So I still think that Huston got less stage bound as an actor as he got older. I wish I'd seen just a little bit more. I'm glad we're seeing that right now. the waterworks. Oh, she's turning on the waterworks, which is
turning
us.
on the waterworks.
There it is.
Yes. Yeah. There we
go. So I would say that I love Beulah Bondi. I think that she was a tad overdone in the spinster department, like she was just a tiny bit like over the edge for me.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I love Beulah Bondi though. I mean, you know, come on. She's Mrs. Bailey and It's a Wonderful Life.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
I guess as I said, I wanted a little bit, and I'm just talking a little bit more development of O'Hara.
Okay.
Sergeant O'Hara and maybe a little bit more of what he was doing. They cut away to him when he's put in the stockade, you know, or in the brig for like 2 seconds. Maybe a little bit more of him in his world with his guys thinking of how he's going to solve this problem would have been nice.
Okay.
And maybe a tiny bit more suspense as the clock ticks down to Tuesday, because she's got to get on this boat that she doesn't want to get on Tuesday. And they keep saying that, but I never felt like I knew exactly what day we were in. And so the suspense of that encroaching and the different things they were trying to do to beat the clock maybe could have been heightened a tiny bit. These are really nitpicky when you compare it to like all the absolutely amazing stuff.
Oh, you're awful good. Awful good.
Her when she finally lets go at him and screams at him is unbelievable.
I bet when you were a kid you caught flies and tore their wings.
Oh yeah, spectacular.
And so is Gargan when Sergeant O'Hara lets him have it.
Yeah.
Like sparks are flying.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about Guy Kibbe and Walter Catlett,
Please.
the two
Please.
comic relief characters in this movie?
Please.
The quartermaster is what a romp that performance
Fantastic,
is.
man. Just great.
His drunken fabulousness when he and her introduction when he comes out and he says, I want you to meet the boys. And she's like, boys?
Freddie, meet the boys.
Boys. Oh, it's so cool. So cool.
It's just awesome. Just
one of the I mean, those two guys were in so many things, so many Capra movies and westerns, and like they were just Warner Brothers backlot staples. They were in everything.
Yeah.
Bringing Up Baby. Guy Kibbe's, and I think by contract in every western ever made. I think he literally had to be.
It was a union rule. There's some dialogue in this that got written down in my bullet journal.
Yeah.
Two lines in particular, because I have a page for quotes and sayings, not from movies, but just anything that I hear that's like, okay, that's a phrase that I want to come, trippingly out of my own mouth sometime.
Right. Let me guess, a lot of these phrases came from Guy Kibbe in this movie.
I'm not even sure I remember who said them.
Well, he as the hotel proprietor, he's kind of like the day drinking slob who just kind of philosophizes all day long.
You don't mind, do you, seeing we're here all by ourselves, if I sit down and have a skag with you boys?
Not at all. Have a drink.
Thanks.
Oh, one of them's from Gargan, actually, which just something that I found incredibly moving and also true. Knowing the worst to begin with isn't always the worst way to begin. That makes me want to cry.
It's a great line. Their romance is beautiful, I think. The fact that he accepts her, that they make it known that he knows her background and her past.
And he doesn't
and that he's totally cool about it. Like, and you really believe that. He's just this kind of like working class, decent, honest guy. And you kind of like go, I think he could make a good life for her. So like you kind of somehow buy that they could do it,
Yeah. Them that kick highest always seem to settle down hardest.
It's great.
It's great stuff.
I love Guy Kibbe's line. We've all crossed thresholds we're not proud of.
Yep. Yeah.
Which in a way could be the philosophy of the movie. It's like if everybody just accepted that, if we all just copped to that, the world would be a much better place.
And then what she says, which shows why she's a better person than Huston. I'm sorry for everybody in the world, I guess.
Great.
I'm sorry for everybody in the world, I guess.
Just great stuff. Good old Nietzsche.
Yeah. Good old Nietzsche. That's a great. I say that all the time.
Yeah, who doesn't?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This rain.
I've got to go to the penitentiary for 3 years.
This rain and those drums. That's something else I've said many a time. Growing up next to Adam's bedroom.
Yeah. There are two shots in this. Oh, did you have other lines?
One other, which was when she says, he says, I've got to accept an unjust punishment by man as a sacrifice for my sins.
And why would you do that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Why would you do that? Yeah.
There's two. In a movie full of amazing photography, and there are two shots that are, man, they're powerful to me. They're shots of her, and they're again that Lewis Milestone moving camera where when she the camera booms down over his shoulder at one point. When she kneels at his feet, he actually gets her to kneel in front of him, and it's an awful thing to see.
Yeah.
It's really disgusting. It's
Yeah.
also kind of sexually perverse. It's physically demeaning. It's a lot of things. And the camera booms down over his shoulder into this close-up of her as she's going down to her knees, and it is powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And she's looking up at him as if he's the sun. And then they have a reverse of that. This shot when she's with Gargan, her boyfriend, and she's like, no, he's a holy man. And the camera goes extreme low angle, like right on the floor. And she comes down into this close-up with Gargan over her shoulder, looking down at her. And she's looking past the camera at the floor, like lit by what looked like the fires of hell, because that's what it kind of implies. I mean, the dynamics of these camera moves and up, and I mean, it's fantastic. It's just fantastic. Got me crazy.
No, I wouldn't if I was you.
Interesting bit of trivia that Crawford was going through her split up with Douglas Fairbanks Jr. during the filming of this, and while they were filming the movie, had an abortion.
I read that,
which is I don't quite know how to wrap my head around that.
Yeah, as a human being going through that and then having to play this part, that's crazy.
Yeah. And you wonder how that informed this, all of that informed this movie and this performance.
Yeah. Which makes sense. If she really believed in this part, because apparently she also she really researched this role. She went down to like the piers in San Diego, was hanging out with prostitutes and like local kind of riffraff people to like learn about how to behave. And
yeah, I did that. I did that once.
Yeah, but you didn't have a part in something.
Oh, that's right.
She was researching.
It's just what I did after school.
And so like she really clearly took it seriously, and I think the work speaks for itself that she did. So that she turned against the movie because it didn't make money. I could see, after having been through all that to make this film and it got bad reviews, she probably would hate it. But it's sad because it's necessary. It's beautiful work. I even think something about what maybe she didn't like it. I'm trying to imagine what she didn't like about it. And there's something kind of about her that looks like she's playing costume dress up a little bit, which I think works for the move for this part, because Sadie Thompson is trying to figure out who she is too. She's dressing up. She's expressing herself in this way, and she's on the run. So she may herself not be totally comfortable in this world yet, but she has to live in it to survive. And I thought that kind of came through a little bit. So we both like this movie. That's fantastic.
Okay. So who am I? Who are you?
I kind of had you as the middle of the road doctor. I thought you would have been played that guy.
So did I. That's what I had myself as. Yeah. And
you? I had me as the boat captain.
The boat captain.
Well, the ensign, the guy, the guy.
Wait just a minute.
The drunken guy.
Hello, guys. Meet
Here in the frozen north, in the land of the Eskimo. Goodbye, Mr. Davidson.
Walter Catlett. Yeah.
Walter Catlett.
Okay. I was close to that. I had you as similar, Guy Kibbe. But
I was Kibbe. Okay.
Yeah.
In a way, we could have been Kibbe. We could have played any of these.
Yeah, you had me as the boring middle of the road guy, and you as one of the more entertaining, interesting characters. And I felt the same.
But I'm only in 2 scenes, whereas you're throughout the whole movie. So
that's true.
Who were you complaining to, sir?
That's true. I get a boring part, but I get paid more than you do.
Okay, what's the double bill?
For me, the double feature was Pretty Woman.
Back in Illinois, where I was raised, it was generally believed that a person who stayed away from business more than one working day in every 10 years was a loose, dangerous, and depraved character.
Yeah,
it's funny because she could have played Sadie Thompson.
Yeah, Yeah, she could have. So yeah, Pretty Woman. How about you?
I'm doing a triple bill.
Oh, okay.
I'm doing a triple bill with the original Dracula from 1931 and The Most Dangerous Game from 1932.
Time to go to bed.
Huh.
Most Dangerous Game being a double, like, pertinent because it's about, you know, lovers trapped on an having to get off a jungle island because they're being hunted by a maniac, which is this. And also Dracula, because I completely feel that they're ripping off some of the close-ups of the hypnotizing effects of Dracula that he uses on his victims. I see in this movie the way that Davidson's looking at her in these close-ups. Definitely.
And how
why would you do that?
How do you watch this movie?
I didn't come up with a way. Just see it, put it in your face. Like, you know, if you can get to real theater to see it, that would be great. But sometimes just seeing something at night alone on your TV by yourself so you could be fully shocked is the right way.
Where can we stay?
I have a weird one, and I'm not exactly sure why I feel this way about it, and maybe it reveals something twisted about my psyche.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is a spectacular early on in your relationship date movie.
Great one.
Because, you know, what it says about, because, you know, if you're somebody who identifies with Sergeant O'Hara, and you're trying to tell a woman who you're interested in that's how you look at the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think of it.
Okay. I think it would be a great date movie. I honestly don't. Here's the thing. If anybody out there listens to this and they're going to watch a movie because we talked about it, I don't want to spoil the ending of this movie.
Yeah.
I really don't.
Okay. Let's not then.
It's a really scary film. There are things about it that are heartwarming, but it's a really nerve-wracking movie. And I don't want to tell people how it ends.
No.
So
for once, we're not going to spoil it. But of all the movies that we've covered, of the 100 and now 104 movies that we've covered, this is definitely in my top 10 list.
Let's refine that and say, oh, that's amazing. Okay, I thought you were talking about something else. This movie is top 10 for you of all the movies we've done on the show.
Yeah.
Great. I think it's I think it's kind of a masterpiece too. So I'm really glad you liked it.
Do you have a recasting?
I do my recast from the past, but this time that was more past. So I'm doing an 80s recast.
Okay.
So my 80s recast of Rain goes as follows. As Sadie, Kim Basinger.
Yeah. Okay.
As Reverend Davidson, Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah.
As Mrs. Davidson, Geraldine Chaplin.
Wow.
As the hotel owner, Ned Beatty.
Yeah.
And as Sergeant O'Hara, a young Christopher Walken.
Wonderful. That's really good. Really good.
I worked hard on that one.
Okay. I did a present day recast.
Okay.
So let's remake it now with Sadie, Julie Garner as Sadie.
Julie Garner,
who did you watch Ozark?
Yeah. Oh, okay. I think I see you. Okay.
Okay. Julie Garner, Daniel Day-Lewis as.
That's good stuff right there.
Okay.
That's really good, sir. Well done. And hi, Stephen Jules Rubin.
Hi, Stephen Jules Rubin. How are you? Chris Evans as O'Hara.
Great.
Captain America. Right?
Nicely done.
Okay. Mike Myers as the innkeeper.
That's good.
Will Ferrell as Quartermaster.
In a serious turn, as a comedy. Wait, in a comic performance in a serious movie. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Nathan Fillion as Dr. McPhail, the nice middle of the road guy.
Fantastic.
And either Catherine Keener or Toni Collette as Mrs. Davidson.
Those are both really good choices. I would say
It's tough between the two of them, I think.
I guess for me, I'd probably go Colette, in the sense that Colette can do really brittle and cold. I think maybe a little bit better than Keener, who's got a kind of a warmth, she's got a sensuality, but everything she does, I feel like. But let's go Toni Collette. I love that casting. That's fantastic. That's really good. I want to see all these versions of it.
Yeah. All right. I have, so that wraps up Rain. I have no idea what we're doing next week. This
Lady Thompson, you are doomed.
This probably wraps up Crawford for
I
us.
think that we should stop Crawford here. We're not an oldies channel. We just happen to get stuck in a Crawford zone. And I'm really happy to end what was a bit of a punch out at their expense at Crawford. Trog and even though we love Straight Jacket and Baby Jane, I'm just proud to come full circle to go. If you want to know why she was a legit star and a really great actor, go see this and get a full dose of what Joan Crawford could really do. Because I think it'll be immediately apparent why she was the level of star she was.
Yeah, it's good that we ended up on that. There is I'm going to throw something out there. I don't know anything about this movie, except my daughter is begging us to cover it.
Really?
And and I'm checking to see if it's available, and it is. It's on Amazon Prime, and my daughter has been begging us to cover. And I don't know if she's a fan of the show or not. I don't know if she. I know she's a fan of our Instagram, but I don't know if she's a fan of the show. I don't know if she's ever watched or listened to an episode of the show.
Oh, my poor child, it is not your fault.
Yes, I will say that to her. She's begging us to cover a movie called La Haine.
Wow. Let's do it.
Which I don't know anything about.
It's a good movie.
Should we
Packs
do
a
that
punch?
next week?
Sure. Packs a punch. It's going in a completely different direction. That's a heavy movie, but really worth it.
All right. Well, and I'm willing to do anything to make my daughter happy.
I would love to, whatever I can do to make Abby happy. Are you kidding me? Let's do it.
All right. So next week, ladies and gentlemen, please join us for La Haine, which is 1995. Costa, reminiscent of Z. Who's in it? Vincent Cassel.
Cassell's in it.
Yeah. So join us next week for La Haine.
Can't wait.
Have a good week, everybody.
Talking about cocktails that are stylish, movies great or phony, and how Tony should win a Matthew, and Matthew should win a Tony. But in the meantime, talking about film in the meantime, the Arkin Brothers talk about movies.